All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of No Percent Names Review Crew. It's where we get our writers and editors together to talk about what we've done and seen in the last week or so. And this week we may not have seen a whole lot, but we're gonna have
I
a kind of
did.
youth episode. No, I actually did see something.
I,
So
I saw I saw three things. I did three
oh,
things. So
it's enough to cover for all of us. So yeah, that is the voice of our founder,
hello, Noah Nelson.
and we've also got our Chicago curator.
Hey everyone, it's Patrick McLean. I did read Metaverse in a lot of articles today, so that is something, I suppose.
Get used to it. So
Yeah, we're gonna say a lot.
of course, that's all I know. What you, Patrick, if you really want to get ahead of the curve, read a bunch of articles that mention NFTs. So I was actually just right before right before I realized we had to do a podcast recording, I was listening to Waypoint Radio, and apparently there's an article over at Waypoint about NFTs in gaming, and people like roll their eyes, but apparently this has been going on in the global south for a while, and there's some very large billion-dollar games that have, these digital objects that people are buying. So yeah, like this stuff is already happening. It's starting to mainstream, but that's a whole other thing. And how it impacts us, you wouldn't think it would impact us, and yet it's definitely gonna be impacting us. But that's for another time.
Maybe it's just later this episode. We do keep talking about NFTs on the show now.
Yeah. Not by choice. So I guess I am the one who has stuff this week. So
you are. Why don't you
kick it off? Yeah. So because we're talking digital, why don't we start with, and Patrick mentioned Metaverse, why don't we start with the MetaMovie Alien Rescue, which I caught this week as part of Raindance, which is the film festival out of London. It's like an indie film festival that also has been for years now one of the major parts of the XR circuit. I believe last year, not the year before, The Devouring won. The Devouring being the long form VR chat world that is this like elaborate horror escape experience. And so the MetaMovie is by there's a bunch of people who work on it, including Mirinda Botha, who does a couple of the characters, and the guy is Jason Moore is the director of it, who was actually interviewed by Audie Cornish. I can't. Oh my God, I've lost my NPR cred.
Audie Cornish
on I think Morning Edition this week because they asked him about the metaverse. So that was a little surprise. I was like, oh, well, it's Jason. So the MetaMovie Alien Rescue is essentially. I'm going to try and do this one for people who don't know all of our own references. So it's a meta movie because what they've done is they've taken a avatar platform, in this case Neos VR, which is a super indie VR platform, even more indie than VR chat, which is pretty darn indie, and built out a series of sets in a game engine that those sets are very, vibes of Alien and Halo. Mind you, Halo has a lot of Alien vibes. So imagine you were doing a giant play acting, a LARP inside a bunch of Halo maps that someone custom made. That is functionally what MetaMovie Alien Rescue is. The storyline is that there's a galaxy at war, torn apart. You're part of a republic that is at war with an evil empire. That evil empire has been taking endangered species and trying to weaponize them, and you're part of a kind of intergalactic animal rights group crew. You've been hired in to do a job to rescue this rare creature from this evil lab. And you run into enemy soldiers, enemy scientists, rogue AI, and also a crew, your own crew, who might have their own ideas about how the whole job is supposed to kind of go. All of the characters are performed, including the creatures, are performed by a troupe of actors. You get to be one person gets to be the hero, and everyone else who joins it gets to be these little what they call iBots. So little, they're given avatars and silenced, and they kind of float around the space and get to see things. And they do get to kind of act, they're playing a droid in Star Wars, essentially. They get to go do extra little things, help out the characters in tiny ways, but don't necessarily get to be, the center of attention. I got to be the hero, and it was a blast. It felt like a big role-playing game session. It felt like what I've always wanted one of these XR performance things to be, and I don't just mean that because like, oh boy, everyone's paying attention to me, and I haven't really done any of these XR performances where people are paying attention to me. But getting to banter with actors. So I likened it to playing Mass Effect, which is one of my favorite role-playing games ever. And when I played Mass Effect 2 years ago, when Connect was still a thing, there was a mode. I actually replayed Mass Effect 2 because there's a mode you could turn on with the Connect where instead of just selecting what your character said, which in Mass Effect, if you could select basically the subtext of what your character is going to say, and then your character would say something along the lines of that subtext, which was something that really bugged a lot of gamers. They hated that. I loved it because I got to watch the character performance after selecting the intention. So it added surprise to the process for me. When I played it with the Connect, though, you could also just read that. And because of that, and then the character would like act out stuff. So you got to kind of act, you got to emote, and then the machine would respond. This was definitely like the next level because like I got to play little scenes with performers, and we had a blast together.
On that note, how leading were the prompts for your engagement then? Was it really, could you interrupt at any time and yabber on, or were there clearly kind of cues and it was kind of more of a yes, no, where you could elaborate if you felt like it? I'm really intrigued by this idea.
Yeah. I mean, I think they're, they've had a lot of different types of people come through. And so, and I think they're often used to like very reluctant, recalcitrant hero characters, like folks at film festivals who just like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. What do I say something now? And then you have to deal with me, who has, LARP and improv training. And even though I tend to kind of hang back in immersive theater pieces, in this one, I was, told like, you're the protagonist. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to throw some swagger in the mix. And that meant that it wasn't so much that I was derailing scenes because we were often splitting the party. And that meant, the passive folks could go on and watch the other characters if they wanted to, while I was off with one of the other actors. There were kind of there was 4 principal actors, 3 of which were in your team. And, I'd be split off with somebody and we'd get to bantering. And there was one moment when one of the characters, there's one moment you're in a lab and a character like starts like stealing these leaves, which are drugs. And he takes one, and I just like I had a full meltdown on him because he like was eating the drugs. I was like, "What are you doing?" And it turns out if I had eaten the drugs as well, I would have seen like particle effects or something like that, which would have been cool. But I'm like, "We're on a mission. What are you doing?" And also, you're eating the profits. Like, come on, like if we're gonna do this, don't right? And so we developed this kind of like really funny relationship a little bit later. And again, this is a normal prompt for him. Like he's like, oh, hey, like what if when this is all over, this is a little spoilery, like, like what if when we get to the objective, like we just betray everybody else? And I like went off on him, but also was like like spun it a different way. Like I got angry, but then I was like, no, look, we can steal the eggs, right? You got to be more subtle in your larceny. And so afterwards they were pretty chuffed with how things went with me as a participant performer. And so yeah, like it's the closest thing I've had to doing like a tabletop role playing game experience in this kind of VR format. Because we've got
So,
a
so
uh
I know they're not quite the same, but how does it like kind of compare to something like the Underpresents, which also kind of puts you in a space with live actors? That feels like maybe the closest analog to like other.
no, totally different. Because like in
No,
that
okay,
one, in that one in that one you're really, oh wow, what the heck. Um, sorry if anyone was getting like absolutely blasted with my voice. My sound decided to like peak to 100 while I wasn't looking. So this is really just adjusting some levels here and trying to get something. Literally, the machine did it behind my back, which is unfortunate. Yeah, that looks a lot better. What was the question again, Kevin?
Well, it was so about the 100%. So as not having done the meta movie, but having done a great deal and had spent a lot of time in the 100%, I would say even from the description, I agree. No, it's definitely a completely different experience. But ultimately, I feel like in the 100%, you're there to bear witness, to maybe have a like at most like a nod or a
Yeah,
universal like arm motion, like a handshake or a wave or something like that to engage with the performer. But generally there you are there to be entertained
yeah,
and to watch a live performer do something they couldn't necessarily do in person in the VR space.
yeah.
You're
It's
still
fairly
involved.
low. You're involved, but it's low agency, right? Like,
Exactly.
I mean, Kevin, to put it in like LA immersive theater terms, like the Underpresents is a little bit more like a speakeasy society show,
okay,
right? And this is a lot more um, theater macabre, right?
okay.
This is a lot more like you're a
Now I
protagonist.
understand.
Now you understand, right? Of course, no one else
Right.
does.
Please put it in
That
only
was
terms that
specifically
only I can understand.
yes,
All
that
right,
was
now can you explain it to the
specifically
New
for
York
Kevin,
audience,
right?
and then
But
for the Philadelphia crowd, and then the Midwesterners, and then the folks down
so
south?
yeah, no, I could do it for each region. I wish I could do it for each region. That'd be hilarious. No, the like the analog here is, you know, I think the LARPing analog is really the way to go, right? Like, um, but in pure terms, it's about how much agency do you have. You've got a very limited set of amount of agency. You've got a lot of traverse in the underpresents, not counting the Tempest, right? In the underpresents, you have traversal agency and you can respond to prompts and kind of play along with the performers. And in like the Tempest, you have all that, and you get the added bonus of sort of you get coached through to perform for each other. In this one, you have incredibly high agency. You are a protagonist. It's the narrative structure that is limiting you, right? Like you're in a big plot, and you could decide to try and derail the plot, but the other characters are there to pull you back, number one. And also, it's not like there's a game master who has an unlimited supply of things to go throw at you. You are in one module, like you're running a specific meta movie alien rescue module in this system. And you sort of know that your job is to get through the module, not to freeform. Um, which that's not only is that like a perfectly valid way of doing things, it's actually a pretty fun way, and and a model that I think could be pursued pretty heavily. And again, sorry that the audio, like I'm seeing, like I'm sure the beginning of this audio is going to be absolutely distorted and awful. We're constantly trying to fix this, and we're constantly getting it wrong because the machines have ideas of their own. But so yeah, um, I think there's a lot of potential in this both in this singular experience, but also in this idea of what if D&D modules for metaversal gaming, right? Like you either buy a ticket and go experience something that a bunch of people perform for you, or, and I was pitching this to the team there. I was saying, like, you guys could sell this as a kit for people to run on their own. Like, let someone else like run it, and like the people could run it and have fun, like, as their friends. And you could see that happening over and over again. And I just think that that's where this will inevitably head.
Oh,
That's kind of like a level set for it.
or even maybe this was part of what you were saying, but now it dawns on me, like, as this could be an answer to, like, when the show opens on Broadway,
Mm-hmm.
the latest Aaron Sorkin play, it's there, it gets rave reviews, and then it starts moving around the country. This could be a really interesting way for a lot of maybe VR places where typically you go and maybe you play uh, Arizona Sunshine and you like shoot up a bunch of zombies with friends, but instead of that, you guys could all play in this movie together. Like, it could be a package in a variety of ways, not just for like,
Yeah.
hey, I have some people at home. It could be something that could be done by another company that they could rent the license for 3 months and run it like they would any show during a traditional theater season.
I mean, I kind of think that might have been what The Void was thinking was going to happen in their initial run, and particularly when they
Mhm.
did the horror one, whose name I can't remember, the one that I didn't get to do that I wish I had done, which was their original IP. And that was literally co-written by Tracy Hickman and Curtis Hickman, as in Tracy Hickman as in Dragonlance Tracy Hickman, because that's who Curtis Hickman's dad is. So they already know, like, the people one of the co-founders of The Void is very familiar with the concept of what a D&D module is. It probably put him through college. So this is the way. Like, I feel like this is the inevitability, but just turning people on to the possibility and having a few good exemplars. And I think what the takeaway here is, I would like for everyone to have, is that this is a good exemplar of the form. Like, MetaMovie's fun. If you've got the kit, go do it. When they're running it, and they run it on the festival circuit. It was like an hour of fun. That the rain dance tickets, I think they may still have a few. The rain dance tickets, I don't know if it's the hero tickets or just the iBot tickets, just $10. I cannot attest to whether or not the passive watch the person tickets are worthwhile or good. I can definitely tell you that when I've seen shows where the person who has the hero ticket in one of these things is not an interesting performer, or is just a fish out of water, it can be excruciating. Like
So
watching
This
bad
can
act.
the
Yeah, go ahead.
can the people watching do anything? Because I know, God, whenever we talked about that one, I think Juliet did the VR Welcome to Respite and mentioned that like the kind of people looking on had like a role to play in it. Is that happen in this one at all, or it's like truly like watching?
Yeah, I mean, Welcome to Respite, you don't really have a role. Like, you have a very limited role. There's
Mhm.
like moments where you get to like kind of like mash a button to like, participate in a moment, but you don't have a lot of agency in this one. The iBot role, the role for the observers, they have 3 responses they can flash. They can't talk, but they can flash the responses: red, green, or I think yellow, right? And then they can fly around and like find things. They can, so like if someone groks what it means, they can like go around a corner, look and see if there's a monster, come back, flash red at you. Like, there would be a way, there'd be a way to like R2D2 this sucker up, right? Like, you could turn that role into like an R2D2 or a BB-8 role if you got clever enough quickly enough. But I'm not sure if, given how much unfamiliarity there often is when dealing with this stuff, if someone's going to be able to make that leap. It's a lot easier to know, oh, I can banter with this actor than to start thinking of like, hey, I'm a droid. I can zip around. I can come back and start, hovering in someone's face and flashing lights and like zipping around and causing a ruckus. And there's definitely a couple of moments in the story where that could happen, but I think you'd have to be very proactive and really catch a wave to have that experience and sort of, driving from the supporting character seat.
I do think it's interesting. I'm here on the website really quick, and I think uh, uh, to your point, Noah, about if you have a lackluster hero in this the meta movie, you might have a bad experience. I'm looking at the ticketing right now, and to be what is the iBot, which is a sidekick ticket, is only $10.
Mm-hmm.
But then to be the hero, you actually have to pay $30.
Yeah, that makes
So
sense.
I think that's a really
Yeah.
subtle way to be like, do you really want to do this? Well, you're gonna have to shell out a little more. But I think that's kind of helpful because maybe those who are in the know or maybe get it would be more like, yeah, I really want to do that. I'm gonna make sure that slot's mine.
Yeah. And I think there's something to, something that the team we talked about afterwards, um, there's a way that they could be inviting like known role players in to play the hero, like because there's a bunch of those, and then like if those people consent, like letting them advertise the fact that they're playing, and then like watching people, because like it could be a lot of fun to see the right person run through that scenario, right? um watching them make choices can, because that can be a total blast, but it is a crapshoot. Like if you pick a random one when you don't know who it is, and they aren't set up to do that gag yet, but I think they're going to get set up to do that.
Nice.
Exciting stuff to me for sure. I mean, I'm the only thing I'm kind of, I do have a Quest headset, but this is definitely a PC VR setup requirement. It's looking like you've got to have, they're even talking about like specific like graphics requirements and making sure you have enough RAM.
Yeah,
So
yeah, you do need a real PC, which is like the downside. It's also why I haven't done it until like now, because this is one of the first opportunities I got to do it since I've owned a PC for like an entire year. Um, and I think in time, like in like a year or two, I don't know about Neos. I doubt Neos will, be solid enough, but the headsets are going to get, the standalone headsets going to keep getting better. They just
yeah,
are.
we're gonna
Yeah.
get there eventually for
Yeah.
sure, absolutely. But
Yeah.
it's just still too far away. I want it. I want the future today.
Yeah. I want it now. I want it now. I want it all. So yeah, that was the meta movie basically.
Nice. How does that fit in the metaverse, though? No, just kidding. I don't care.
I could tell you. I mean, Neos calls itself a metaverse. I of course reject the idea of there being multiple metaverses. I am in camp. There is the metaverse, and then any given thing inside it is a verse. Like I'm more than willing to say the Marvel verse, the Neos verse, the VR chat verse, the Horizon verse. Like I would gladly, the immersive verse, like all that sort of stuff, right? No problem. But this conceptual idea of spatialized web, an embodied spatialized web that has VR and AR components to it, that lets real people act on digital objects and maybe digital objects act on real things. That's the metaverse, except no substitutes.
All right, so let's send you into a different universe and talk about the Upside Down. Did I get that transition?
You did.
Segue?
You did.
Segue?
Of course, it
Yeah.
was ironic of like, let's just 20 questions with Noah. It's like, what did you see this week? Oh, great wise one. Where did you go?
Well, I mean, as a teaser,
live vicariously through
it's
you.
gonna go downhill pretty quick after we get off your
Yeah.
topics, I think.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. So the other thing I did, gosh, what is so wait, quick shout out. And Blake and I did a lot of this week, and we will do a spoiler cast. Inscription, it's amazing. I think we'll do a spoiler cast that's maybe like Blake, myself, and Michael Anderson from ARGN because we're all into it.
I really want you to wait until I can actually play the damn game so I can get in on that, but I cannot play it right now.
When are you done with the rig work thing? When does that finish up?
No, I don't have my non-work computer is a Mac, and I can't play it there, and it's not out on any consoles. So I am out of luck.
Out of luck. You're gonna be out of luck for a while. So I'm sorry. We're gonna do that spoiler cast before you're able to play it.
Damn it.
Guess you're not listening to that episode, Kevin.
Yeah, I'm sorry. But if you do have PC that can play it, and I gotta imagine a lot of PCs can, Inscription is incredible. And
how long did it take to play through?
If I had if I was doing it on PC, I could literally tell you. I could look at my Steam account and tell you. But I think it was like under 10 hours. I want to say.
Oh, okay.
Like it is not a long game. It is not a long game at all. Like I did it
healthy for an indie game, though.
Oh, it's healthy for an indie game.
Yeah,
and you find yourself. I mean, you want it to look. You get to the end of that thing, you're like, I wish it was longer, right? But not that much longer, or there's other things I would say, but like it would spoil. But it's just as I say in like my capsule review, it's more immersive than like 3/4 of the things that call it themselves immersive. And I mean that I do not say that lightly. Like both on the like too many things call themselves immersive and aren't to the point where like people are like, I don't want to call my thing immersive when what they're doing is like totally immersive, right? Because it's like, well, people just use that term like I do something that's impertesserated, and it's like, okay, cool, right? But this thing, it builds a world, it draws you into it, it messes with the fourth wall, it endows you with a character, and there's a lot of moments where you just sit there going like, where am I right now? Like where am I? Like I don't know what my relationship to this thing is in a good way, in a way where you just feel, like when you go through like a physical immersive experience and you get totally turned around and discombobulated and you no longer understand, like you don't know what floor you're on or what direction you're facing, right?
Yeah, because this almost does sound like we're gonna keep coming back to it, the theater macabre kind of thing, like where it's like is it breaking the fourth wall? Who are you in this space? Like, and then can that relationship change as you move through the show? So it very much does sound like some of those kind of
absolutely
LA style shows that get all into being meta, but the other term for meta.
Seriously.
Right.
So
I'm gonna find a PC to bum off of.
Borrow someone's PC gaming laptop for 10 hours. Just like, I just need one thing. So the other thing this week was Stranger Things, the official store. This is open in the LA area. It's open at the Americana at Brand, also, which has a great Twitter account called Americana at Brand Memes, which is not an official account, but is brilliant. And so, so it's at the Americana at Brand, and in New York, it's in Times Square. This is a pop-up retail / sort of Selfie Palace setup that is a free to go to store that sells Stranger Things and Netflix and appropriate to the theme and era of Stranger Things merch. So you'll find Stranger Things gear. One of the swag bag was one of the little shopping bags they sell, which has an I Demogorgon LA logo on it. There's an I Demogorgon New York in the New York one. If they do other cities, it'll be I Demogorgon. It's like the I love, the I heart, except it's the Demogorgon mouth, which is hilarious and adorbs and freaky. So I love it. There's the front of the store kind of evokes the logo and also like 80s passion for red neon. So you walk in the front, there's like nothing else except the logo. You can go to the left or the right, both will lead to the next thing. The next room is like Joyce's living room is set up as sort of a selfie station. There's also things on the shelves you could buy, like little knickknacks that are themed out. There's a phone on the wall that's ringing, and like you can get up to some no good of that. You walk past the next thing, there's another set, will be like right on your left or right depending how you go, which is just a backdrop with like two BMX dirt bikes, and not even really BMX, but just like kids dirt bikes, so you can like selfie station on. The seats both say do not sit on. Like you're allowed to like stand next to or straddle, but you don't sit on the bikes.
It's like some terrible Christmas gift. You
Yeah.
can look at the bike, but you can't ride it.
Ride it.
That's it. It's going back to the store tomorrow, so
Exactly.
enjoy looking at it.
Farther in the back, there's going to be like a prom room setup thing where they do some like you can get embroidered. You can get an embroidered Scoops Ahoy hat. So if you want a Scoops Ahoy hat that has your name on it, like you're a poor fool who works at Scoops Ahoy, they can sell that to you. If you want to go into the Starcade and play some arcade games that they have on free play, which of course I did, you can do that. And they also had
what games did you play?
Centipede and Ms. Pac-Man, of course.
All right.
I'm not. I really played Centipede. I did one board of Ms. Pac-Man, and it was set to be super fast. I was like, dang, okay, like they want us to lose. They set it to the maximum setting. That's fine. Still cleared a board. But it was Centipede I hadn't played in a while. Because like, how often do you get a chance to play Centipede with a trackball? Never. And then probably my favorite detail in the whole place in there was like the merch rack for the hoodies and shirts were shaped like arcade cabinets, and I'm like, I want arcade cabinet wardrobes now. Like that's all I want. It's like a line of arcade cabinet wardrobes like to line one wall of my room. I never thought of it. I saw it. I was like, this is amazing. There was like another dude, older dude in there. He brought his whole family. Another media guy, and I was like, look at that. He's like, I know, I want them. And I was like, me too. We didn't care about the shirts. We just wanted the wardrobes.
How big was this store? Because I guess initially when I read your review, like it was like I felt like it was probably going to be a compact space, like, and maybe there was like corners, but there's a lot here that you did.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say like a good size Apple store, or like, a Lululemon, not a full Nike town. It's not that level, like it's one floor. It's relatively deep. It's wide enough in a sense in that they were able to create a partition to the right. So they put that, there was another room that was, what do you call it? It had this like reactor thing that you could mess with. So there was kind of like an interactive piece that would then set off a bunch of lights if you went through the whole sequence. And it was pretty simplistic. It was actually super easy to overthink. Like we were overthinking it. And then the PR person was like, what does this look like? It was one of those moments where you're like, you got your escape room brain on. I was like, I think it's this. And they was like, no, it's a lot simpler than that. This is made for dummies. And so now you're doing the thing where you're being too smart. And it's like,
yes, sir. Can you please move along? The children would like a chance to play now.
Okay, thank look, you. How often do you get to turn the keys at the same time? How often do you get to do that? So I did twice. And literally did it once with a small child, and then I did it again by myself. And then there's like a selfie station with the Demogorgon, so I had some fun, doing that. And then, I think I found myself nostalgic for Stranger Things after 20 minutes in there, which I'm like, congratulations, mission accomplished, Netflix. That's the whole point. They want to make you miss the show, which won't come back until like this June, but they want to get you hyped up. and then because you got they want you to keep your subscription up. The thing you like is coming. We swear. No, there's actually some really good stuff on Netflix right now, which I don't often say, but there is. Arcane is amazing. But that's a whole other thing. And
But are you
yeah,
going to play League of Legends though?
no, I'm not. I am
Oh,
gonna
okay.
go. I am gonna go to the secret cinema thing here in LA. But actually, going to this Stranger Things thing hooked us up with that, so that was good. Like it was a very very smart choice I made to like not just be like, whatever, because I had fun and I saw the future of selfie palaces. Like this is the death of the standalone selfie palace because you're moving through the space and there was Stranger Things merch, there was Netflix merch, there was Masters of the Universe retro toys, which totally tracks with
IP synergy,
right
man.
IP synergy, and also like that'd be appropriate for the time. There were Ghostbusters toys, which again, not a Netflix property, but IP synergy, totally appropriate for Stranger Things, and then perfect for what Sony's up to right now. Um, so there was a lot of stuff in there, and there was also plenty of 80s stuff. Like the swag bag had some Big League Chew in it, which I will admit I loved as a kid. And yeah, like I could see people, doing some Christmas shopping at this thing, getting some selfies at the selfie stations. The people who are like the high end fans, maybe ordering some of like, the Demogorgon statue or something like that. People are really into it. And there's other things that are just fun. And it's free to go into, maybe buy some merch, but I can't entirely see. And I know that people do line up still to go to normal selfie palaces, but I can't kind of see selfie palaces surviving in a world where this sort of thing just gets sucked into normal retail spaces and people are no longer paying for the privilege of going through a selfie palace, but instead are buying merch because, you know, plenty of the foot space is, devoted to merchandise you would actually want to buy.
All right. I was gonna say something about that, and then now I don't remember. So, let's kick it over to Patrick, who's going to talk about something.
Yeah, well, so everyone, come on down to Literary Verse and put your smoking jacket on, maybe a pipe if you feel so inclined, and then help me pull the furniture together. And we're going to throw a blanket over these chairs because we're going to be talking about Choose Your Own Adventures, specifically The House of Danger and War with the Evil Power Master. Now, why am I talking about this? Well, that's a great question, guys. Thank you for bringing that
I
up.
mean, I was gonna ask, but I wasn't gonna do it straightforward. I was gonna add a few other words.
Noah's like, wait, what is what? Why
What?
is this guy here? What am I? But I went on vacation recently up to upstate Wisconsin, and there was several reasons. One was like there was no internet. It was like a true artist retreat up in Door County, very secluded and that kind of delightfully refreshing and engaging, focused way. But then also, I've been percolating my own immersive ideas and my own stuff, and I am a writer by trade first and foremost. So I've been kind of toying around with and exploring a lot lately. Choose your own adventure like things. But I recently was like, those books are so small, they're so light. Why don't I pick up one or two, take it back, and then like revisit it 20 years later?
Hmm.
Probably even longer than that, and just spend a night because there's no TV. It's nothing. There's nothing. Like you could go stare at the stars, but since it's also that far north, after 10 minutes you begin to freeze to death. So I had plenty of time to kill in the room. So I started flipping through these and super, as I said, super way off kind of base from what we do, but basically only on the periphery. But I just kind of wanted to technically talk about some of these books and kind of like that perspective all these years later, because they're children's books first and foremost, through and through. But I couldn't help but get caught up in it nevertheless. Um like there's like this excitement that comes where it's like turn to page 16 to do this or turn to page 98 to do that, and you honestly don't know what's going to happen, because in both the books I read, in the most delightful way, anything goes. In House of Danger, I was killed by monkeys who had dart guns. I was eaten alive by a human-sized Venus flytrap. I was abducted by aliens, twice actually, and only had like encountered like a good ending once or twice. And just not knowing literally what was going to come each and every time I made a decision was exciting. What I kind of found also interesting, though, from a technical perspective of looking at these books, was a few things. One, on one hand, it's like why go to turn to page 3 or turn to page 29, but there's like this subtle genius of like flipping through the pages as you get to wherever you're going, and I'm like, oh, what was that image I saw briefly? What like secret journey of that? Like, it's kind of like that Sleep No More thing when you're walking around and maybe you're following one story beat or one character and you walk by an open door and there's like this whole big world happening on the other side, and like there's this whole event happening in that room, and you only see it that briefest section for that brief second, but then you're like, oh well, I'm curious if I ever revisit if how to get to that point. And so I kind of found that very interesting, to kind of re-examine what these were all about. Additionally, I kind of had an interesting thought that do you guys remember? I'm not sure if either of you have read any of these. I presume you've come across them at least. Do you remember on the back, they always had an infographic, breaking down like the decisions, like, if you
Oh,
make this
No.
I
decision,
don't.
there's a decision tree all the way down.
I
Do you
never
guys
saw
remember these?
that. Were these old prints of them?
No, these are new. I went to
Oh,
my local bookstore and
yeah. I think that might be new.
That sounds like a
yeah.
modern
So,
thing.
Yeah.
That's fun though.
well, right. So in that sense, I think it's really cool because I noticed that on the backs, there's like the very colorful decision trees, but they're broken down incredibly meticulously. Like there's essentially, I'm looking at the back of the War with the Evil Power Master, and there's like a little circle with a triangle. There's 4 of those. And then it gets to a big circle where you can either go left or right. And then to the left, it's 3 triangles going down. And then to the right, there's 2. And then when I noticed that, I went back, I counted. That's how many pages that you're going through.
Mm.
So like it's even mapping out like how many pages you're reading before you get to another decision. So whether you're maybe a parent wanting to make sure your kid is reading enough or whatever, or in this instance, I could very easily backtrack to a decision I had previously made by looking at the back of the cover, which I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah, that's an interesting utility addition to like the form.
Mm-hmm. And then honestly, the only other really big observation I had was in the back, whether I presume it's going to be different by volume when they're like, oh, we have like 8. If we print this book, there's going to be 8 blank pages, so we better put something in there. There's this little 2-page section in the back of both of these, which was like the history of game books. And I'm not sure if either you know this, but while Choose Your Own Adventures is kind of like, since the late or mid 70s, is kind of like the name brand. Like this is what we all kind of think of when we think of like interactive game books and branching narrative stuff. This was actually a very popular art form, it seems, in Central and South America. Apparently, according to them, the first kind of game book is from 1941 from an Argentinian writer, George Luis Borges, and the work is called An Examination of the Work of Herbert Quan, and it's a story that has 3 parts and 9 endings. And that same author did another story about a writer lost in a garden that had multiple storylines and endings. And then there were several others, but I really, I guess in that sense, long story short, on why the hell I'm talking about these kids' books is if you're in your local bookstore and you come across them, maybe pick one up. They're only $7.99. There's a to your point, they've really upped the game with like kind of the utilitarian like aspects of it, in the sense that I think there is something for both creators and fans of immersive to kind of look at these and kind of deconstruct the structure of what these books are doing. And it kind of allows us to really think in those like almost like storytelling basics of like A wants something from B. Well, if I want the person to get eaten by a Venus flytrap, what series of events has to occur to guide them there?
I think the other kind of piece, I feel like some immersive experiences do it's not quite choose your own adventure, but it has kind of that same flow to where it's like person A ends up on this path, and then they talk to so and so and end up on this path, while the other person in the room goes this way. It feels, and it's not a one-to-one match, but it's kind of in that same vein. I feel like you kind of think of immersive experiences in that sense of how they like kind of branch off and like where you end up, or at least the story you probably end up with the same ending as like everybody else. But it's one of those things that it does feel relevant to immersive in a couple different ways.
And there's definitely a little bit of signposting, because in one of the things in the House of Danger, I remember quite vividly, it was like you sense danger and most likely a deadly trap, and you decide to back away, go to this page. And then the other option was you decide to forge ahead anyways, go to page whatever. So it's like, I wonder which one of these choices I'm going to end up dead. So I kind of noticed that now that I'm much, much older, that kind of obvious signposting to be like, are you really sure you don't want to listen to the elder space detective to make sure you're doing the right thing? Or do you want to be a hotshot and just go off alone? It's like, well, I guess I'll follow the rules. Thanks.
Yeah, I think that was I never got deep into CYOAs. I think in part because like the linearity, or even though it's non-linear, like the rigidness and sort of the linearity of the forking path thing was never like my bag. Like even if you give me like 4 options, I was kind of like, but like, what if you did this? Like that's always been the thing. That probably gets back to like, why I enjoyed the MetaMovie so much, was that it's finally but like, what if we did this instead? Um,
Yeah, you are super on rails here. There
yeah,
is literally at best 1 or 2 directions you can take.
yeah. No, it's literally just like, kick the what do you call it, the track switcher. You do that, and that's as far as you get to go with this sort of thing. But it's so important, and as a seminal tool for like interactive storytelling, the idea of the branching paths. I find it fascinating that they like trace it back to Borges, though. Like that trips me out right there. I mean, it makes sense because like, yes, he worked in nonlinear, and it's not like I've like delved deeply into his stuff. If anything, it makes me go like, oh, I should probably like really give it a whirl.
Right. I guess if anything, that's the takeaway here, is that we're talking about this because apparently I need to go pick up a copy of some of Borges's other works
Yes.
and talk about that in a couple months here on the program.
Yeah,
Instead.
yeah. I may have started the Wikipedia dive. I was like, oh, I didn't realize boys worked nonlinear that way. Like suddenly I'm like fascinated. It's like, why didn't anyone tell me?
Yeah, and there's also the other one is Julio Cortazar, Cortazar. I apologize.
This is
Um, his book was composed of 155 quote chapters, end quotes, that the reader could make their way through a number of different quote novels, end quote, depending on the choices they made.
See, it's so important that, sometimes I think people take the aphorism, there's nothing new under the sun, and get sad about it. I know when I first encountered that idea, I was so sad. I've now come around to the realization that, but it also means that there's always something else to discover that you never knew was there. That there are these vast, like going back to like the NFT talk at the beginning of the thing, right? The fact that there are these games in the global south, like in the Philippines. Like I was listening on, like I said, I was listening on the Waypoint. They're like, there are games that people play that they're making money playing the game, and sometimes they're able to make more money playing the game than whatever like little job they could get around them, right? Which is crazy, but we have to like start, we have to bring it within the realm of our imagination as to like what this stuff is going to do to our economies, plural.
And even historically with these choose your own adventures, like to discover and for them to credit these other authors before them, it goes the other way. It's like, oh wow, you could go deeper into the past to discover
Absolutely.
how the form has evolved over decades, and be excited by something that clearly maybe someone hasn't thought or picked up recently, and then be inspired to take that 6 steps further today.
Well, and then it doesn't just have to be like a light entertainment. I mean, like those are some serious literary roots, right? And that constant tension between art and entertainment, right? Between the sacred and the profane, between commerce and, something that's good. All of that, right? Constantly happening. The eternal struggle. Kevin, did you do anything this week, or are you just vibing with us?
I don't really have a topic. I'm mostly vibing, but I can give you guys a little choose your own adventure thing.
Okay, is this like, do we talk about Blazeball or not, or
how dare you? So, topic 1 is a video game / immersive thing that I may have talked about before. Topic B is a video game I played about 45 minutes of last night, and topic C is a book.
What was the video game you played 45 minutes of last night?
It was Disco Elysium.
Ooh, Disco Elysium. Yeah. I want to talk about literary and choices and whatnot.
So
we brought up Mass Effect earlier.
Yeah.
I also downloaded that one because I have never played Mass Effect, and it was on sale. So I bought the complete edition or whatever that was.
Disco. So talk to us about Disco. How are you vibing with it so far?
Yeah. I'm very into it because I got the final cut or whatever, which is voice acted too. So I don't know if you've played it or which version you've played. But some great voice acting on whoever does like the internal monologue for the main character. Who sounds like someone from Hades too, and I'm not sure if it's the same guy. Could be.
And if memory serves, it's one actor doing all of the different internal monologues.
Yes. Yeah. So that's part of it, is that you play as a drunk detective who seems to have lost his memory, and it fits in where kind of we were talking about D&D stuff earlier, is you kind of have these various stats, and whatever you pick is something you're good at or bad at. And even on the cards that like talk about the stats, it's like even if you're too good at something, it also negatively affects you. Like you can be too smart and then you can't function with like normal people, or you're too internal. So based on those stats, you have like running internal monologues that will pop up. So I think I picked like the intelligence one. So an encyclopedia voice keeps popping up and like reciting facts as I'm like looking at dialogue options. Let me back up even further. So it's sort of like a role-playing game where you pick a lot of dialogue options, and that's like the gameplay mechanism as you try to figure out what is happening to you. And I presume some detective story here that's going to unfold once I actually make it outside the building I started in. But it's like I said, I played about 45 minutes of it, so not very far. But it feels like something that is in line with some of this immersive stuff, or at least immersive adjacent that we've been talking about, where it's like, I think there's some appeal here because of that kind of role-playing nature and the way it branches off based on whatever. So it's like, I didn't pick physical aspects. So I was like trying to get a tie off the fan without turning the fan off. And I think my guy almost like had a heart attack and like died right there. And then you kind of pick different things based on that, and it's a cool experience, and I can't wait to actually get further and like really begin to explore some of these systems that it's playing with. But it's rad. Cool art style too. Cool music. Like,
Yeah, and I think to your point, I feel like Disco Elysium, the decisions really have an impact. I feel like we've talked about video games kind of passively and occasionally specifically here on the program, but I keep saying program. I guess I got that Ari Cornish thing stuck in my head, and I feel like I'm on NPR. But I feel like because some of those video games, like, yeah, like the world changes around you, the sky's maybe a different color, or maybe that town's a little more run down, or this town is a little nicer because of the decisions you made. But like, really, there's like some nitty gritty detail and about how you interact with people and specific things you do and how that just like ripples outwards from your actions to everyone and everything.
Yeah, I started Disco. I heard nothing but good things. I was like, I dig where they're going. I don't think I have the patience for this type of game at the moment, and that was months ago. And I had bought it on sale and on a PC setup, and then like when the Final Cut came, they just like updated it.
Mm.
And I know it's on Switch now, which I'm not gonna like buy a game a second time.
I think it's on PlayStation. I think it's on everything now.
It's
it
on
is on
it's on
everything
everything
now.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's totally on everything now. When I say like I think it's on Switch now, that's code for like oh, I could play it in bed, right? So like I might be I may be able to like stream it somehow to my phone or something along those lines, right? And maybe the text is big enough to read. I don't know. That would be the kind of the requirement, but I think that's just there's the fully voice acting thing is like great because then I don't have to read it, but like then the pacing of it, like there's just so much there is so much text
There is
to
a
it all.
lot of
A
text.
lot of text. And like at the end of the day, I love reading. I love reading, but I do it all day long for work. And so that's kind of the hard thing for me is like
Mm-hmm.
um I by the time it's time for me to like completely unwind, if I've got any visual juice left in me, it may not be it may not be able to handle something that's very textual. Granted, it's all fully voice acted now, but that means it's still paced like something textual, and
Mm-hmm.
just I don't know. Just I guess what I'm saying is like let me know how long it is when it's all said and done because that'll probably determine whether or not I like take a real stab at it. Like I was very impressed, particularly in the opening. Like I try to do some stuff and I was like, oh, this is fascinating. There's some real depth here in a way that like I hadn't seen in a role playing game in a long time.
Yeah, and I kind of wish I'd excuse me that I'd played it when it was before and after to kind of compare because it like the voice acting is interesting, but definitely slows down. Like if you're kind of a fast reader or whatever, and you're like you want to get to it, you don't want to cut the guy off in the middle of kind of as he's talking, but it definitely slows the game down in a
Yeah.
way that just like reading like a choose your own adventure novel wouldn't, as you kind of pick the dialogue options and kind of branch off from there. So, Patrick, which did you? It sounds like you played it. Which version did you play?
I played the reading version of it, so so I'm actually very excited. I did not know about the final cut, and to your point, Kevin, yes, like it goes very kind of quickly in that sense of like I think for better or worse, thanks to other games of no fault of Disco Elysium, I always get into the habit of like when the text starts appearing and you read far enough, you're like, okay, I get it. I
Hit A,
know
hit A,
which
hit A,
option
hit
I
A.
need
Yeah.
to respond to, like what I'm gonna do as a character. So that was helpful to like it's like, okay, I got it, great. Boop, we're going along. I like in Mass Effect, it's like I know where this conversation's going. I already know how I'm gonna respond. I'm just gonna click, boop, go, and we can move on.
And yeah, I think at least with Disco Elysium too, it's like it seems like some of the dialogue options are like insane too, depending
Yes.
on how your like characters built. Like you get like normal ones, and then it's like, what the hell is this option? And like where is it gonna take me? So I definitely want to like play around with some of that stuff. Because it seems just silly and fun. And like the game definitely has a sense of humor, but like it's a pretty serious story and they're getting into like topics including like the literary reference, and I think there's like music references and lots of that going on, but it's also very like dryly funny about all of it, which is nice.
Groovy. Well, we've been at for an hour on the dot on the recording.
Are you saying you don't want to go back in the decision branch and talk about baseball?
We can count back 8 minutes and just do the next option instead.
Well, we did it last week, right? Or the week before.
I was going to try and drag Patrick into it because I think he spent like 2 minutes doing something.
Yeah.
Well, we'll talk about it more when more people have a chance to like play with some of the short circuit stuff they're doing.
Yeah. The next time, when's the next onboarding for that?
Unclear. I assume it's going to be after Thanksgiving.
Gotcha.
Because this one ends on Friday, and I assume they'll take a couple week break and come back with another one.
I will say for posterity's sake that whatever, like several months ago when Kevin was talking about it, I joined the Blazeball Discord server, and if you're out there, listener, and you did the same, I was completely overwhelmed and lost, and I look forward to like when like they pick a firm date in advance. And we could maybe all try. Maybe that'll be the review crew where we like. Kevin teaches everybody how to navigate the Discord, how to place the bets.
Not even the game, just the Discord, and then we get.
Gosh, good golly, and gosh. All right. Well, on that note, Kevin, you wanna roll us out?
Yeah. Thank you all for joining us on this Wednesday night in November as we come down off the spooky season high and figure out what we're doing. We'll see you next week. Same place, same channel.